Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And we are so excited. We have Scott Jelinek, and he has been a real estate investor for almost 30 years. And he has closed over 800 deals and owns 158 slow flips. And when you think of slow flip, a lot of you might be like, what is that? Is that just a flip that takes a long time? It's not. And so stay tuned. We are super excited and we are glad to welcome Scott. Scott, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing today, Chantel?
I'm doing great. So tell us, what in the world is a slow flip?
So a slow flip is really nothing new. We sell homes with owner financing, long-term owner financing, and that's been around forever. But what we do that makes it unique and what makes it a slow flip is we have two sides of it. We buy it on short-term financing and then we sell them on long-term financing. So it's not just the sale. We typically buy low-end homes, which I know everybody hates, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we buy low-end homes and then we buy them on 5-year mortgages. So they're amortized and free and clear in 5 years, which is another thing I know everybody hates. Everybody loves leverage and hates free and clear. And then we sell them on long-term mortgages, either to investors or homeowners. More often than not, they're to investors. And we do them as is. We don't renovate. We don't do repairs. We operate just like a bank.
Okay, so break it down for someone who has never even heard about what a slow flip is. Break it down just in the simplest of terms for people to understand. Let's say exactly from how you start to get the property and who you're selling them to.
So first, let me give you the numbers because I don't know. This is going to be, I guess you're going to have people listen from all over the country. And in certain areas of the country, people are going to hear my numbers and they are going to say, he's out of his mind. You can't buy a house for that much, right? This is the first thing people say. That's crazy. Nobody can buy a house for that price. But I always tell them, before you argue, just go on Google and you can find there are whole cities with tons of houses in these price ranges. Our typical slow flip, and now we do all kinds of creative deals with all kinds of numbers, but the typical slow flip is a $30,000 house or less, which I know people might be like, yeah, it's crazy. They don't exist. They do exist. And we buy houses for $30,000, but we can use a private lender for the entire amount. So $30,000 with a private lender, typically we pay 12% interest, which I know sounds really high, but on a short-term mortgage, it's not much of a difference. On a 5-year mortgage for $30,000, the payment comes out to $667.33. That's amortized, so there is no balloon. We sell it immediately, like the same day. We don't paint it, clean it up, mow the lawn. We sell them immediately, typically an average price of $89,000. And we sell it on a 30-year mortgage, and our average payment that we're bringing in is $875 a month. So we typically don't make any money for the first 5 years. But after that 60th payment, it's all profit. The starting payment number 61 through 360 is all profit because we didn't pay anything for it, and our buyer completely paid it off in the first 5 years. Does that clarify it?
Yes. So let me repeat it. And then, so first of all, you're going to find a house somewhere around $30,000, $50,000. You're going to use a private lender. You're going to get it at about 12% interest. For the first 5 years, you're paying around $667 a month, something from there. And then you're going to sell it for around $80,000.
89 is our average. Yep.
Sell it around $80,000. And then you're going to make around $875 an hour.
Correct.
And so you're saying, look, I'm only making about $200 profit for the first 5 years, but then you're making the full amount.
Well, I actually try and teach my people as there's no profit for the first 5 years. And the reason is, I know it looks like there is, but I didn't take into account taxes and insurance. So after you factor in taxes and insurance, it's really no profit for the first 5 years. But that's okay. And the reason is, and people have a hard time with this because most people get into this business and they want to hit the ground running and be rich next month, right? Well, what I've come to, and there's a saying I love, and I'll tell you right now, is I always tell people, I say, if you do what's easy, life will be hard. And if you do what's hard, life will be easy. And this is the hard path. It's hard to not get paid for 5 years, but if you do it in 5 years, you're going to be so thankful that you did because now you're free for the rest of your life, as opposed to try and make that little spread right now and you can struggle along with rentals for the rest of your life. Most people I know with rentals, that do it the conventional model, the Burr method and refi and pull out all this money and have mortgage payments, they make a small spread and usually they love it. And sometimes it's fantastic, providing the market doesn't change and everything stays great. There's a flip side to that. And that's if the market doesn't stay great or if things don't go your way, you still have all these mortgages. And I've been down that road. I can tell you a little bit about how I got into this and my story, but I've been down that road and everything got flipped on its head, which is why I converted my thinking to, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be the bank. I do not want to be enslaved to the bank. So I've changed it around my whole way of thinking. And so we struggle in the sense that we don't make money for the first 5 years. But once we pass 5 years, the cash flow is enormous. So, I 1,000 times over prefer it to conventional rentals.
So do you have any conventional rentals at all?
Zero. I currently have 178 properties and I have 0 conventional rentals. They're all slow flips. Now, they do range in price. I'm telling you the numbers on a $30,000 home because that's the model that I teach. However, I have them all the way up to $875,000. We do all kinds of houses where we can do the sell side of the slow flip, but the buy side where we can't pay them off in 5 years if they're a different price range. So I do have them in all different price ranges, but the base model is the 30 to 50,000 where we pay them off in 5 years. But I have 0 rentals. I have 178 properties. I have 0 employees. I have 0 management. I don't have repair calls because we are just the bank. We are just processing payments. We're not maintaining the property. It's somebody else's property to maintain.
I want to tell you, one of the reasons why I joined and I just love CHANTEL is that I can get 100% commission, I get revenue share, and I get stock. I am making thousands of dollars every single month in revenue share and stocks. And I now don't have to work nights and weekends on real estate anymore. I've actually never been to a real estate agent's retirement party, and I want to be the first one that people are coming to at a young age. And I want to share with you some of my favorite resources. So if you go to joincanzel.com/free, there's a couple that I want you to download. One is a 20 free lead generating PDF. It's going to help you generate leads for free that you can download, as well as there's one on how to double your business. I don't want you to miss it. Go download it today. joincanzel.com/free.
Wow. So when did you start doing this? How long ago?
So to give you a little background, so the slow flip was actually born in 2011, where I defined it and started doing 5-year mortgages. But prior to that, I started buying rentals in 1994. About 2001, we had our first signs of appreciation, right? Up until then, I was buying for the same prices. I was buying non-qualifying assumptions, if you remember those. And I was buying them for the same prices the people bought them for in 85, 86, 87, taking over their mortgages. There was no appreciation until about 2000, 2001, we started seeing appreciation. And then I did what everyone taught to do. I went to the seminars, I read the books, and I did what everybody taught, which was to pull out the equity, right? Pull out, that's dead money, pull out the equity and buy more properties. And so I did that. And so I got to about 84 properties up until 2007. And I know everybody loves to say the bust was 2008, but I assure you it was in 2007 because I have my books to prove it. And in 2007, I had probably 30 to 35 properties overnight stop paying. Everybody was getting crushed, but ultimately it flowed to their landlord. And I ultimately lost 55 of my houses out of those 84 to foreclosure. And this is really challenging. It's hard on anybody, mind you, but it was really hard on me because I had an Escalade wrapped in stop foreclosure. That was our business. And so it was a challenging time, but a lot of people went out of business. They went back to their jobs, went back to their pre-real estate lives. And I didn't have that option because I was just a landscaper beforehand. And there's no job I could have got that would have afforded me the lifestyle I was already living. And so I saw there were still some people who were crushing it. They were still doing really well. And so I started, interviewing them and having lunch and trying to find out what they're doing different. And one of the things I found across the board, 100%, which goes against everything everyone teaches, is they all owned everything free and clear. And so that sounds great to own stuff free and clear, but you got to have money, right? You got to have money to buy them. And so I realized, well, just wasn't going to be possible. We just have to pay them off quickly. So in 2011, if you remember the market, we were going down from 8 to 9, 10, 11. That's really when we were hitting bottom. And houses in our market, you can find houses off the MLS for 15 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand. but I couldn't get a mortgage. I couldn't finance a pack of gum, right? Because my credit was shot. I just lost all these houses. So that's where I came up with the plan of, okay, well, I'm going to have to borrow money, even though I'm against debt, but I need it to be as fast as possible. And so I used private lenders. And again, private lender, everybody's like, oh, they're so hard to find. Private lenders love this because they're making a 12% return on their money. I remember when I was first talking to lenders about it, and everybody wants to do a 30-year mortgage, right? That's what we're all accustomed to. And I remember thinking, I said, I buy a car for 50 grand and they finance me for 5 years. Yet I want to buy a house. They want to finance that same 50 grand for 30 years. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I want them paid off as quick as possible. So in 2011 is really when I put it together as a formal plan. And it was rough all the way up until 2016. All the way up until 2016, I was constantly questioning myself, am I doing the right thing? I have all these properties and I'm not making any money from them, because we have this 5-year plan. In 2016, everything changed. And now the first month I had 3 paid off. The next month I got 2 more paid off. I got 1 paid off. I got 3 paid off. I have them on my wall the months that they're paid off. And suddenly everything changed because now all the cash is coming in and we get to keep it. Instead of the conventional plan, which is you bring in a ton of cash and then you send out a ton of cash and you hope to keep what's left. Once we hit our fifth year, our 60th month, all the money's ours. And it really changed everything.
Really, it's only yours because so let me just repeat this. So let's say you buy that house for $30,000 and then you're basically being the bank for that new tenant. And so you're saying to him, okay, I'm now selling it to you for $80,000. First of all, my first question is, how many of those people actually end up going through it and paying it? And what happens if that person says, okay, this place needs a new roof and new AC and new this and new that? How many of those people actually just say, screw it, I don't have $10,000 to put on a new roof and a new HVAC and all this stuff, I'm out? And they just forget.
Those are 2 questions, and they're great questions. So the first one, you were saying how many people actually come through with it, right? So we have a really high success rate, but one of the reasons we do is because we fully amortize it for 30 years. One of the things I don't like about our business and the owner finance business, the people that do rent to owns and lease options, is it has a really bad reputation, and rightfully so, because most people that do lease options, and I used to do lease options and all that type of stuff, they have a balloon. They say, oh, you have 2 years, you have 3 years, you have 5 years, and then you have to refi it or pay it off. And what happens is this person put money down, now they renovated it, and then 3 years go by and they can't refi and they lose the house. So they kind of, I'm not calling them scams because it is what everybody agreed to, but it is a black eye on the industry because these people are losing their home. So when we did this, we decided we don't want to be a part of that. So we're giving them the full term. They have the full term. They never have to refi, never have to pay us off. Just do your monthly payments like a regular bank. Now about the work that it needs. Now, some of the houses are perfect, and then some houses need major work, but we advertise them as such. If it's a handyman special or contractor special, I've had houses completely burned out by fire, and I've still sold them with owner financing to contractors. So the contractor now gets a good deal where he doesn't have to qualify for a mortgage. He doesn't have to go to a bank, and now he can bring in his own crews and do the renovation, and then he either keeps it as a rental for himself, or he can put it on the market and sell it. But we allow them to do home inspections ahead of time. We allow them to inspect it as thoroughly as they would like. But it's just like if you were selling a bank owned and someone bought it using hard money, and it was more work than they expected. Well, that's on they're grown-ups, and it's your job as a grown-up to make your own decisions. But some people may bite off more than they can chew, but for the most part, we sell to investors, and they know it. They renovate them, they rent them, or a lot of them do Section 8, a lot of them do regular rentals, and some turn around and sell them. It does happen. We do have some turnover, but for the most part, even during COVID, when nobody was going to work, our people, I had friends in the regular rental business that had massive non-payers, and our people were paying because they had such a vested interest in them that they weren't willing to take a chance on what if this ends and we end up getting kicked out. So everybody paid. Not everybody, but most of them all paid.
So did you come up with this name, Slow Flip, or is that someone else came up with this idea?
So I came up with the name. Actually, a friend of mine used that word in a different context. So he used it in a different context, but as soon as I heard it, he was using it for something else that was similar to, not really what we do, but he actually renovated the homes and then sold them on a lease option type thing. But when I heard the word, I was like, that is what we do is slow flips. And so I've used that term ever since as what we do. And so I can't say I invented the word. If you Google slow flips, there's 20 people that are using it in different contexts throughout the country. A lot of them mean like they live in the home and live in it for 2 years while they renovate it and then turn around and sell it. They call that a slow flip. In our version, and what we coined as slow flips is buying them. The simple way I say it is we buy it like a car and we sell it like a house. We buy it on short-term money, sell it on long-term money.
So how many houses that you have bought are completely paid off right now?
I have 79 of mine are free and clear. And this is something that I always talk to people. I said, you don't understand the magnitude of the power of free and clear homes. Everybody preaches the opposite, oh, leverage, leverage, leverage. And that's great. And there is value to leverage, mind you. I'm not putting that down, but not for me. I came to a conclusion that I want freedom and I want simplicity. You can do the leverage model. People say, well, if I take those 79 and parlay them, I can turn those into 700 houses, right? And you could. But I don't need 700 houses. I have more than enough. So think about even just 79 houses on how much that is per month coming in with no outgoing money. It's a lot of money where,
how much is it exactly?
On average, we get about $900 per month, so it's a lot.
About $79,000 a month.
Yeah, right now I think I'm at about 70, per month. And then the rest of them, I have 178 now. The rest of them will be paid off at some day within 5 years. Because even the ones I bought this past week, they have 5 years now. But every one I purchase has a 5-year term behind it. So it keeps increasing as we go.
So you and I are friends with Matt Saunders. And if you guys missed that episode, he's actually come on the show twice. It's been one of our biggest downloads. And he owns over 75 rental properties. He owns them free and clear. He makes $75,000 a month. He owns them. But what he's done is he did it the traditional way, right? Where he just kept buying another one, paying it down, doing it on 15-year mortgages. Now, someone would say, okay, well, is the way that Matt did it better because for you guys make it 20, you guys are going to get paid for 25 years on the property because if you do a 30-year mortgage, you're getting paid for 25 years. So there's pros and cons to both, and I can see them, but I want you to talk about both sides. So like if you go the Matt Saunders way, and if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you download it. What are the pros for that? What are the cons for that? And then for the slow flip, I want you to be real honest. What are all the pros? What are all the cons?
So Matt used to do 15-year mortgages when he started, but then he started primarily paying cash for his houses,
right?
Which I love because now you're getting paid right from day one. And I do a lot of them in cash now too, but it just wasn't possible in the beginning. So it's interesting. I remember when Matt was doing primarily Section 8 and we had lunch and he had me convinced to go ahead and give Section 8 a try. And we left that lunch with me trying Section 8 and him trying slow flips because we both were excited about what it was we were doing. And I tried Section 8 for a while and didn't like it at all. And then he came more onto the slow flip side. So the pros and cons basically are, the short answer I always tell people is there's a million ways to make $1 million. Choose one, right? It's not slow flips or nothing. It's not Matt's way or nothing. It's not whatever you're doing or nothing. But they all work. All these different systems work. I always, people ask, well, what's the best investment? And I say your best investment is investing in yourself. Because to say slow flips are the best thing in the world, I believe they are, but it's not the only thing in the world. Matt's way clearly works. Your way clearly works. People that run restaurant chains works for them. It's just not, I'm doing what works for me and my personality type. Like I don't like to manage people. I don't like property. I don't like all of that infrastructure. And so for me, just managing paper is what works. But other people, I'll tell you one of the big cons, one of the reasons people hate what I do. Well, there's a couple reasons they hate what I do, but one of the big reasons they hate them is some people that have nicer properties like you have, Chantel, is they have an emotional attachment to their house. They love their house. Like they took care of it. They picked out the door and the fixture and they drive by and they're proud of their house and they love it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I used to be that way. Now I have no emotional attachment to my houses. I have houses I've never seen. And I process papers. I just shuffle papers. That's it. I sign the papers here at this price, and then I sign papers here at this price, and I collect a check and I pay out a check. But I don't have any that home has an emotional attachment, but it's to my buyer. My buyer now is the one who's loving that house and picking out the fixture and changing the door. It's not me. And so that's I've had a friend of mine recently said, we were talking about changing his rentals to slow flips, and his answer, I'll never forget, he said, well, with my luck, they'll all end up buying it. And I'm like, do you hear what you're saying? Yes, with your luck, they'll buy them. We sell them at full retails. I call it super retail because it's full retail, but without agent commissions, without closing cost assistance, without punch list. So if they were to buy them, then yes, you'll take that money and go buy 2 more with that money. So it's not a bad thing if they bought them. But when you have an emotional attachment to the house, it is a bad thing because you feel like you're losing your houses. And to me, I'm like, well, I lost 1 and I bought 3 more or 2 more. So it doesn't matter which ones they are. The other thing that people don't like about these is we generally, not always, but generally deal in low-end housing. And most people, and this is the reason our business exists, most people do not like low-end housing. For rentals, they are the worst rentals you could ever have in the world. Why are they the worst? You're going to have the lower-end tenant. You're going to have higher maintenance. You're going to have higher turnover. You're going to have, a lower quality person, a lower quality neighborhood. For flips, nobody wants them because, there are not a lot of retail sales in the neighborhood. There might be, you get your constructions getting their stuff ripped off when they go home at night, and they don't want to rehab in these areas. And so they sit. And so people are like, well, then how come it works for you? Because I used to not buy in these markets. Before I did slow flip, I was the same way. I was like, no, I don't want rentals in these areas, and I wouldn't mess with them. But as a slow flip, it's different because we're not selling the house so much as we're selling the financing, and the house comes with it. And so people buy like I have no vacancies at all. I have one right now, but I just closed on it last week. So it's vacant, but only because it's brand new. But we typically have 0 vacancies. Now, that doesn't mean the house isn't vacant because I may have sold it to a landlord who now renovated it, and he may had a tenant for a year or 2. It may be vacant and he's refilling it, but I still get my check every month, just like a bank, whether or not it's producing, whether or not he has a tenant in there, whether or not the air conditioning unit got stolen or the roof caved in. I'm still getting my check on the first of the month, regardless of what's going on in the house, because that's not my business. I'm just the bank. I always tell people, I said, you wouldn't call Bank of America if you had a leak. Don't call me. I operate just like the bank.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating and a review so we can get this out to more agents. And tune in next week for another power-packed episode. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Podcast.